Welcome back to another edition of the Truck Parking Clubhouse. I'm Michael Lombard, back at you again another Monday night. Very, very special. Happy birthday to the United States Marine Corps out there. 250 years. We got a quarter of a millennium of history right there. The world's finest fighting force. I served in the Marine Corps from 2008 to 2012. If you served in the Marine Corps, I just want to wish you all a happy birthday. Feel free to drop it in the comments. Your name, your MOS, whatever have you. But big shout out to you guys. Also, big shout out. We've got Veterans Day tomorrow. So to any of you guys out there, especially the drivers who have served our country and continue to serve our country over the road driving, definitely want to salute you. We do got a promo code going out. Check your inbox. Taillights issue 43 just dropped your way. We've got a Veterans Day promo code in there. You can use Veterans25, get you $25 off a booking. You can use that through Sunday. If you're looking at the bottom of the screen, we've got a partner code for you. We've got a survey code. We've got a whole bunch of news we cover in taillights with some ice raids in Oklahoma. We've got a trucker who got on his dash cam a shot of that tragic plane crash from UPS last week over there in Louisville, Kentucky. As well as a little taillights throwback from a 1966 edition, little Veterans Day shout out in there. So check your inbox, might be in your spam folder. Get in taillights. There's plenty of discounts, news. Join the conversation. My contact info is in there. Would love to get all of your reactions. And if you're tuning in live on this Marine Corps birthday, definitely let us know where you're coming from. But without any further delay, let's get right into the clubhouse, talk trucking with our guy, Nate the Rambler Mitchell. What's going on, brother?
What's up? And happy birthday to you.
Dude, appreciate you, and happy Veterans Day to you tomorrow. Big shout out. We got an Army guy in the chat.
Awesome. That's great. Yeah, my dad served as a Marine in Vietnam, my granddad in the Pacific in World War II. Sadly, they're not with us anymore, but so I definitely know what this means for y'all. And somewhere in this country or across the world, there are some Marines giving some local police a hard time right now.
That is without a doubt, whether it's at their Marine Corps ball or wherever they are. There's definitely some Marines causing some havoc, but well deserved, man. I'm glad to have you.
Yes, definitely well deserved.
Big shout out to this is a friend of mine right here. This is why I decided to go live on Facebook. He said it more like the strip clubs. My buddy Jordan Maxon coming at us live, fellow Marine with it. But man, let's get right into the clubhouse. Let's talk some trucking. Let's the Nate Rambler story. So what got you into trucking, man? How'd you get behind the wheel?
Well, I got into trucking because I couldn't get take part in my other dream that I wanted to. I always wanted to be a pilot. I had dreams of going to space, and just through a series of different events in my life that just wasn't able to happen. I had a injury to one of my eyes when I was about 16 on July 4th, 1999. So I lost partial eyesight in one eye. I've got 20/20 in the other eye. And so for the longest time, I didn't think I could fly. And then I found out that I was able to fly, took some flying lessons, got involved with Civil Air Patrol. And then that kind of got sidelined because I was also in college at the time, and I lost my job, moved back home, tried different avenues, tried law enforcement, tried pizza delivery, different things of that nature. Got into the military, and then after getting out of the military, it was a bit of a rough adjustment, and I had some stuff come up that didn't quite jive with the aviation community, and I ended up not being able to go back to flying and finish my my training to get become a pilot, going to airlines or whatever. And the military flying just wasn't ever really a thing, because on July 4th, 99, I was homeschooled. So I sat there and I was like, well, all right, God, I'll buckle down my schoolwork, and because some fellow homeschoolers, a couple of friends, they got into service academies. I was like, well, I'll get into it and buckle down my schoolwork, and I'll I'll apply to a service academy or college or ROTC, become a fighter pilot. Less than 30 seconds later, I had the answer from God, the universe, whatever you want to say. And I had my eye injury from a bottle rocket. And that was that. And that started the next 20 years of trying to find myself. And I'm still trying to find myself. But the second time, what the issue was with the second go around was, and I'm not going to get into my history on the internet here, but I am classified as a disabled veteran, and I was medically retired from the Army. So I still have my rank, still have my privileges. Um, but when the FAA found that out, sometime between the period of when I was first taking lessons and when I wanted to go back and take them again, they had done some restructuring. They had some pilots that shouldn't have been flying at all, and they so they wanted to know why the military retired me. So I'd send them documents and everything of that nature, and they determined at this point in time, for commercial flight, which is what I was going for, it just wasn't going to happen. And so I was a little dejected, a little distraught. But in the midst of all that, while waiting, I was working at a jail, and I decided, well, I want to do something. I don't want to just work at a jail. I want to get out there. I want to see stuff. So I went and took the leap and got my CDL, and that's what started the past 7 years. And I got my CDL, was restricted on that side to interstate only, so I could only drive in state because of my eyesight, which is really funny because the eyesight wasn't the issue that kept me from flying, but trucking, they didn't want me going over the road. So that turned into 3 years of trying to maintain a safe record. I worked for a local company in my town, driving dump trucks and flatbed. And then after the 3 years, they changed the rules to where all you needed was a vision examination, and make sure that you didn't have any degenerative diseases or anything like that that's going to get progressively worse. Mine wasn't. It was just an injury. It's like, hey, it's been this way ever since. The eye looks a little funny, and they determined I was monocular. Nothing was going to change. So, my restriction is I have to have outside mirrors. And that was the funny part when I went to go get my CDL. Every truck commercially, legally, by DOT standards, has to have outside mirrors. And so we all thought, okay, everything's good. So but the state of Tennessee was like, no, you've got to do all these extra steps. And then part of that was the FMCSA's rules at the time. You had to log how many miles, get letters from your safety directors, all that stuff. Then they changed it to streamline it because they started realizing that there were other drivers, like truck drivers from the military. They'd go over there, something would happen, they would have a lot of guys were coming back where they had to have sunglasses on 24/7, so different vision issues were coming up that didn't hinder them in day-to-day life, but it was different and wouldn't match with federal regulations at that time until you proved that you were safe. So that's what ended up happening. Finally got the clearance about 3 to 4 years into it. And then last year was my first foray over the road. And that didn't quite work out. So I came back home, worked locally, and then I've been on the road again with the company I'm at now since about February. And so that's kind of the journey to becoming a truck driver. And what the real driver was, just like with wanting to fly or go into space or anything, was just the exploration of it, just the fun part of it. And on top of that, the money. There is still money to be made in trucking if you know where to look and have the right people guiding you. But really, it was just the adventure.
Yeah, the idea of not being trapped behind, not being stationary. Being stationary can be, I mean, it can be limiting. It's sitting still. It's why, I mean, it's definitely part of why I joined the Marines. I think it's why a lot of people join the military is to literally get out of their hometown.
Oh yeah, yeah, definitely. And definitely, there's many people that seek out the military, aviation, trucking, Peace Corps, offshore oil rig. It's for the adventure. It's to get out of their bubble.
No, exactly. I think what the good part is about the story is that you went from jail to your CDL, but you're on the other side of the bars.
Yeah, I was.
You weren't
Yeah,
behind the bars.
no, I wasn't behind the bars. And that's a different life. It, there's there's three types of people that end up in jail: the innocent, the ones who know they did it, and then the ones who aren't sure how they got there. And those are the ones I refer to as the lost ones. Like they just can't get out of their own way. It's just a never ending cycle. That was not a long term career. I'd done a stint as a reserve officer in Middle Tennessee for about a year. Saw it from the road aspect, but the road is being a road cop is kind of like being a paramedic. Once you get them to the jail or the hospital, you just drop them off. They're not your problem anymore. Whereas jailers have to deal with all the drama and the processing and the fights and the despair on the inside. And I quickly realized that just wasn't for me. I tried to treat the inmates with respect until they gave me a reason not to. And I wasn't one of these guys that tried to gaslight them. I just wanted to be left alone, do my 12 hours. But yeah, I definitely was not on that side of the bars. I used to crack up with them and tell them, they'd say, I'm bonding out, on the 25th of this month or whatever. And I'm like, yeah, well, I bond out every day at 6 a.m. They didn't really like that. So,
Yeah, I'd say that's got to be an interesting experience. There's there was a certain point in history where I think, well, at least when I think the idea of, because there's so many people where it was like, oh, it's either go to jail or join the military. And I think that used to be true, and that kind of went away with it. But there were guys that I was in boot camp with who that's kind of what their option was. Not on paper though. It could never be done on paper. It was kind of done behind closed doors. And this is like, this 2007 time frame. So behind closed doors, if somebody was getting into some trouble because of the state of recruitment and the push in Afghanistan, I know that they were kind of, I hate to say that they were letting anybody in, but there was there were people who they were given out ASVAB waivers in like 2007. And so like there were definitely guys who behind closed doors, that was the option, either the Marine Corps or jail. And I always think about being backed against the wall at that point. But at least you're on the other side of the bars. But your trucking journey, it's interesting how the vision is what came up. But in theory, you set yourself up for success. I think starting off locally for a while and then getting it over the road. Would you say? I mean, what would you say you prefer now? You enjoy it. You prefer the over the road. That was the kind of the allure to start.
I do prefer the over the road. However, it comes with a very high price. And that price is, for most people, time away from your family, your children, time away from things that you enjoy doing, because many companies out here, they barely let you finish your 34-hour break before you're back out on the road. You don't really get a chance to expand yourself, better yourself, enjoy your hobbies in that short amount of time frame, much less your family. And but over the road, it's very much the lifeblood of the country, because I just hauled a load from Wisconsin down here to Texas. A series of short hops could have could have gotten that same load there, but it would have taken longer, whereas one truck was able to do it in just a couple of days instead of waiting on other trucks. But local, if you are a family person or you're trying to build other things like your own business or what have you, unless your business is just trucking, local is a great way to go for a lot of people because it allows you to have that work-life balance, if you will. I'm not sure that's the right term, but you go put in 11, 12, 14 hours, come home, have dinner with your family, get grounded, get some rest, do it again. And then most places, especially in the construction world, you're usually off for a couple of days. And that's what I was doing was construction driving, So the downside to that in construction is like weather would impact your job. But there are other local jobs like LTL, package delivery. There's a lot of trucking companies in my area that haul sand to construction companies, for example, and they'll do 1 or 2 loads a day and then be done. And yet they're still driving full combination vehicles with end dumps and so on and so forth. There's tanker jobs that can be done locally. I was talking to a friend of mine up in Wisconsin. He went and found a job where he's hauling within 150 air miles, and he's home every night and making more than he was over the road as a regional driver. So over the road is definitely something I've very much enjoy, and it's paying the bills for now. It allowed me to be able to take my kids on to Disney for Halloween this year, and my wife, and we had a great time. But it does come with a price, and it's a price I willingly chose to pay, and hopefully I can get us to a point where I can structure myself to where I don't have to be on the road as much, and I can bring people along to help me build something where they can go do the long haul stuff, and I'll sit back and just try to support them and get them what they need, and stick around closer to home a little bit.
Yeah, build something from there. Lay the foundation and then build it up from there. What kind of so currently you mentioned local dump trucks. You went over the road for a little bit, but yeah, right now. So what line of work are you in now?
I drive a flatbed Conestoga primarily. I do work for a flatbed company. They are primarily open top flatbed, the classic, empty skateboard. And then when I showed up there, they just started breaking into Conestoga work, hauling coils more often and things of that nature. And they knew I did that a little bit last year. Asked if I was interested, so that's what I do. So most of my routes are like from East Tennessee up to Iowa, Michigan, Chicago, running steel and aluminum coils back and forth, and occasionally bricks or different materials. My company has a contract with a company that makes I'm not sure how to describe it. It's not particle wood. It's something kind of different, but it's used in construction. And they also haul something called Hubble boxes, which actually I've got a load of right now. And it's underground utility boxes, from what I understand. They're made out of fiberglass and different stuff.
What would you say? What do you think's better? You think Conestoga or regular open deck flatbed's the way to go?
Oh, I get into this with my buddies all the time. They're like, "Oh man, ditch that Conestoga. Come on, regular flatbeds where it's at." For me, Conestoga. I've got tarps back there, but I don't like throwing them. And see, when I did flatbed for a construction company, I didn't have to tarp anything. Everything was, it was usually like construction scrap or road barriers or something of that nature. And I came to this company expecting to have to throw tarps and get used to it, but I don't think you could ever get used to that. And I'm 42. It's just I'm not in shape right now, and to throw that all the time. I'd say if I did it more often, I would. But I love the Conestogas because it's just such a time saver. Because the few times I do have to go and take a tarped load on open, like I had to take a regular flatbed to a frame shop, but deliver a load in the process that had to be tarped. And I was rolling tarps up and then pick up another one, go get another load that had to be tarped, was rolling tarps up. And the guys with the Conestogas were just rolling through. And while I'm out there trying to figure out how to roll these tarps up and get them tight, throw them back on, they were history. They had already took their securement off, closed their curtain up, and we're gone. And so I love it. And on top of that, especially if it's like raining, you don't have to worry about a whole lot about getting wet if you need to go in there and redo a securement or something on the side of the road. In a lot of ways, protects loads. But I will say this: I was picking up a load in Iowa, and there was an owner operator that rolled up next to me, and he was picking up a oversized load of plate steel. And he said he used to run Conestogas, but it didn't work out for him because sometimes he'd be sitting almost up to 2 days waiting on a load. So he switched back to regular flatbed, and he said that made all the difference because it gave more options. Because open tops, you can carry oversized loads more effectively than you can with a Conestoga. So I can see both sides of it. But for me personally, on a day to day, if the money's the same or about the same, I'd rather just pull a Conestoga. It's a lot more fun for me. On top of that, it makes my truck look a lot better because it's a high roof 680, so it blends a lot better than a open top flatbed would.
Yeah, also in a way, it also helps with the fuel efficiency. Yeah, if you're a high roof with an open deck in the back, you're kind of cutting through wind. The air doesn't glide over as much. So a little bit of fuel mileage. But yeah, I'd say situation dictates for it. Depends on the line of work you're in, who your customers are. If Conestoga works, it works. You're able to move fast, get in and out, and at least it's working out for you. No, that's awesome, man. Keep freaking crushing it out there. I mean, with going over the road, because you spent several years local, so it's like you never really had to encounter the parking issue. When it comes to when it comes to parking and that your first time's going over the road, when was the first time you had heard of Truck Parking Club?
I heard about. Well, I'm not really sure when the first time I heard about it was. I had thought of a concept similar to this, a few years back, because I'd be driving by the rest areas there east of Knoxville early in the mornings, and excuse me, and I would see these guys piled up outside the rest areas, and I just don't remember seeing that growing up. And I noticed over the last, this time frame would have been like 2018, 2019, and I noticed over like the last 10 years, more and more trucks were just piling up on exit ramps, rest areas, just random places, seemingly all around the same time. And I always thought that was odd. And but the first time I heard about Truck Parking Club was earlier this year, I believe. I was watching one of your videos and seeing you talking about it, and then when I went over the road, I hadn't been out on the road but just a few weeks, and I found that one there in South Louis. Oh, my wife's from Kentucky. She's going to get mad at me for butchering the name. I almost said Louisville. It's Louisville. Anyway, and I'd been snaking through town trying to find parking and saw something on Trucker Path pop up. It just had a big P on there. Clicked on it, said Truck Parking Club, Shepherdsville, whatever. And I was like, oh, that's what this is. And I was looking at it. It was like in a little transfer lot, a little bit away from the truck stops and industrial area. I was like, I don't know about this, but pulled up the app, signed up, and plugged the info in. Sure enough, there it was, and booked it. And so that was my first booking and the first time I signed up for it, and probably the first time it actually made sense what Truck Parking Club actually was and what they were going for. Because locally, you just don't run into that. You leave your yard and you come back to your yard, and even if you're out of town doing work like we were during Hurricane Helene, we were staying at a motel and we could park our trucks there or at the uh, Department of Transportation yard on the other side of town. So parking was never really an issue. But that's how I came about it, and then and it's been a blessing. There's been times where it's really come in handy.
Yeah, I was going to say you've stayed at some of our locations recently. Tonight I think you're coming at us live from a spot in West Texas, which is it's near a place that I guess your company works for, but you can't park there.
Well, yeah, it is my first time there. It's a transfer yard we use, and so a lot of the stuff that we bring in gets carried over the border. So drivers from Mexico will come up, get our trailers, take it down there, deliver it, bring them back. We'll pick them up. We'll go take it back to wherever to get loaded, and then repeat the process all over again. This time, because usually it's drop and hook with the regular flatbeds, um, and with me being a Conestoga, I had to get live unloaded, and then they load it onto another flatbed heading that direction. Um, and I'd never been here before, and I didn't know they had hours of operation stuff. And so I rolled up, and there was a lock on the gate. And so I asked one of my buddies, I was like, "Hey, how do we get in here?" And he's like, "Oh, they'll be there at whatever in the morning. No one's going to mess with you." And nobody did, but I was on a public street, and occasionally a car would come out and drive by, and I like being somewhere where I don't have to worry about getting hit or blocking something, or someone having to come and be like, "Hey, move! You shouldn't be parked here. You got to go down to truck stops," because that's happened to me. Um, and so I was looking, and even I was out of hours, so couldn't really go anywhere. And I've seen this site that I'm at right now that I made a video about earlier today. Not even a quarter mile. Basically, you go down the street, hang a right, and you're right there. And I was like, man, this is perfect. And so still had some time before I have to leave tomorrow. So I was like, all right, well, I guess I'm camping out here, and it's great. I've got the mountains off in the distance. I can see the lights of the city and Fort Bliss off to my left, and it's quiet. It's so quiet. I've got the window open right now, and these people, they left. They locked the gate up behind them. They came up and looked, made sure that I was supposed to be here, uh, according to the booking, and they left. And of course, I've got a lock code. I can open the gate and leave, but it's just perfect. And there's so many situations where something like Truck Parking Club comes in handy. And, for this very reason, because a lot of facilities just don't, a lot of places and companies just don't have the facilities built up for parking. A lot do. And, but this is one of those times where, especially my first time out here, having somewhere quiet where I could just chill makes all the difference for me.
Yeah, and kind of like, for next time, it's just when you get back, whenever you're taking that, you said you took that load from Wisconsin, and by all means, maybe there's other freight that you guys have that moves out to El Paso and it comes from wherever, and just how you can piece it up with your clock, knowing full well it's like, oh, well, if I get to El Paso, or it's just like, well, it's going to take me, I know, just under 11 hours to get to El Paso. And it's like, as opposed to stopping 2 hours before you're even near El Paso, now you can drive that full distance to El Paso, get to that transfer yard, and then pop right over to a spot because the network has been able to grow that much. You got to stay at a cool spot in Michigan though recently. Where were you at? You got to see they had some different kind of amenities.
Yeah, that place is pretty neat, and I think that came alive not too long ago. I was talking to one of the other guys with Truck Parking Club about that. It's Luna Pier. It's I forget the exit right off the top of my head, but it's right as you cross the state line going north into Detroit. It's right there around where the Loves, the Pilot, and everything is. It's a small little BP truck stop, and it has parking. And you get off, you hang a right if or a left, depending on which direction the interstate you come from. Pull in there, all the parking's in the back along the back row, and you're like an 8-minute walk from Lake Erie. I believe it's Lake Erie. My geography is a little rusty, but you stand there in front of the gas station, look down, you can see the park and the little pier that you can walk out on. And when I got there, I was just so tired, I just went to bed, and I didn't go inside. Nothing. The next morning, I got up to go use the bathroom, get a snack. As I was walking in there, they had in a little side room massage chairs for, I think it's $5 for 25 minutes, and they even had slot machines in there. Of course, you have to be over 21 to go in there. But I thought that was really cool. You know, something else to offer drivers or travelers. You know, something to chill and relax, and then it's like $15 a night. You know, and it's not that big of an expense, really, if you think about it, because one cool thing that location offers, which is on the listing with Truck Parking Club, is if you go in there and buy more than $15 worth of stuff, they allow you to stay there for free. And that's not hard to do in Michigan, especially if you're like a smoker. Like my pack of cigarettes in Michigan is like $10. So, and then I usually get like a energy drink or a couple of snacks. So before you know it, after tax, you're way over that $15 anyway. And then boom, you know, you got your snacks, you get to park for free. Or if you don't want to buy anything, you know, just use one of our promo codes or pay the $15, and it's quiet. Nobody bothers you. I think there's 2 or 3 other trucks there that night, and they just minded their business. I minded mine, and I will definitely be using that location again because up there, the truck stops just get on anywhere on 75 from Florida to Michigan. The truck stops fill up quick and fast, and usually around 3-4 o'clock, and in most places. So finding that little gem in amongst all that chaos was just awesome, and I can't wait to stay there again. Definitely going to take part of those massage chairs or slot machines too.
Hey man, I can't personally endorse, Truck Parking Club. We can't personally endorse gambling, but it is your money. You're able to do what you want. I definitely don't want to, it's not up to me to quarterback how people spend their money when it comes to those slot machines. But I'll tell you, I mean, you can't beat lakefront truck parking though.
Okay, well, I'll put it to you this way. I'll take that back. I will take a monetary relaxation session, and I didn't even think about that. So,
oh no, that's me. No, the thing is, you can tell drivers, hey, they got slot machines here, but I can't go ahead and be like, hey man, because then all of a sudden, people be in the comments, they'll be like, dude, Lombard from Truck Parking Club, he said drivers got to go park at this spot because we can win money. All of a sudden, it turns into a news story. All of a sudden, I tell people,
oh hey, yeah, we don't want to do that.
You could double your money if you park with Truck Parking Club. I can't lead them astray, man. I can't. we know how news can travel, so I don't want to get a mix up. But that's sick. I mean, can't be. I mean, lakefront truck parking, slot machines, freaking massage chairs. It sounds like a good spot, especially up there in Michigan. Michigan's tough to. It's a tough place to get to. I mean, I think when it comes to like difficulty of truck parking. Michigan's kind of flies under the radar. It's not, I think people talk about, Atlanta easily, LA being in the tri-state New York City area, but Michigan's kind of its own little peninsula in a way, depending on where you're going. If you're kind of in the middle of the state-ish, but even when you're far north, if you got to go up way north, maybe Traverse City area, it's kind of rural, so there's just not a whole lot. And then if you're near Detroit, it's tough. And then if you're on the west side of the state, if you're on any of those major highways, it's definitely a tough spot to find. So again, if you're in Michigan tonight, if you're going to be in Michigan in the future, and you haven't downloaded our app, check it out. But no, I'm glad these locations have been working out, coming in clutch for you. Besides parking, and this would kind of be my last. Well, I got two questions left for you because it kind of leads into the last question. It's been, it's November. It's been quite a wild year. You've basically been with this new company now for a year. You've been over the road. You've been over the road with a lot of stuff going on. We've covered a lot of it in the newsletter between the ELP mandates, some of these tough accidents, and we just last week had the 2025, American Transportation Research Institute top 10 issues in the industry going on. What is your, number one top issue in the industry? What would you say is number one right now, that besides parking, maybe if that's your number one, what's something else where you're just like, you know what, this needs to get fixed?
Maintenance. Maintenance is, I'm seeing a different side of it now because now I'm a lease operator. So I'm having to incur a lot of the maintenance costs. Now with my company, we have a maintenance escrow. So I don't see it up front like I would if I was a true owner operator having to pony up every nickel and dime. But the maintenance is, and I realize these guys do a tough job, but a lot of these big shops aren't paying the driver, or not the drivers, the mechanics, what they're worth for the incredible job that they have to do, because our lives, and by contrast, everyone else's lives are literally in their hands if they don't put something back together correctly. I mean, a lot of the stuff you can just slow down, pull over the side of the road, but what if a tie rod fails and that truck has to take the ditch and roll and go into the other median? I want the mechanics to be paid well enough that they pay attention and don't have to worry about looking for another job. Or you see it so often that, just the lack of motivation to do anything correctly, because they just don't, they get treated like crap. They want, and drivers will roll up, be like, hey, I want you to fix my stuff now. Their bosses will turn around and be like, hey, you need to do all this before, forget that truck over there, do this now. And they lose focus. And, for the amount of money we're paying to maintain these trucks, the mechanics just aren't being compensated very well. In some places they are. I'm not an expert in their world, but just from what I see, the outside looking in, I would want to pay, if I had a magic wand and I could do it correctly, I would want to pay a mechanic well enough to where he didn't have to worry as much about the bottom line on Friday, and that way he can focus on making sure those trucks stay on the road. The other thing that feeds into maintenance is don't band-aid trucks. Fix them right. Now, you're not always going to get it right, but instead of just like patching something to get it down the road, now you do that to get it to the shop. But if it's in the shop, fix it right. I don't care what it costs, fix it right. Make it legal, make it safe. That way that driver and general public doesn't have to worry about, that particular issue. Now, that may not have been the issue. Then you still got to go back and forth until you find the issue, but do it right the first time. Whatever you think it is, fix it correctly. Because if the trucks don't run, the companies don't make money, the drivers don't make money, the mechanics don't make money, the dispatchers, the brokers. I know people are going to come at me for mentioning brokers, But there's a lot of cogs in this machine that we call trucking and logistics. And if the trucks don't move, the entire system fails. And, I just don't see the point in throwing money continuously, 140, 200, 250, $300 an hour just to get rich. In my opinion, granted, this is my opinion from my experience, get rich off the backs of people just trying to keep everything moving. Just fix it right the first time, get it done, stop screwing around. And if you start with that, and get a lot of these other, needless systems off these trucks, that they tried them and all it's turned into is a big money making thing. And, go back to just the basics. Like I mentioned, I wanted to be a pilot earlier. There's a lot of technology in aviation that has remained the same for like 70 years because it's reliable, it's safe, it works, it keeps people in the air, keeps planes in the air. Ground-based vehicles, they try all these different little things, whether that's 3 new electronic control modules on a truck, or DPF systems, which I guess they're doing a study now to see if they're even going to put them on trucks after a certain year. I've been trying to keep up with the news on that, but keep the maintenance simple, and keep the cost per hour reasonable. Like, I don't see anything wrong with paying $50-$60 an hour. Now, if an accountant sat down and be like, hey, this is what parts cost, this is what labor costs, blah, 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 this is why it's so high, I get it. But it doesn't have to be. I think we can find another solution to bring the maintenance costs that keep these trucks moving down, and yet pay the mechanics more so they don't have to worry about anything and just focus on getting the trucks fixed back on the road so everybody's making money and it keeps this country flowing.
Yeah, I think that's when it comes to the HERI top 2025 issues, maintenance doesn't make the list. You could say, because number one for the HRE's top 25, and for like motor carriers, for drivers, number one was driver pay, which is linked to the economy, and then for carriers it's economy. And I don't know if I didn't. There's really not much to read into, but I don't really know if economy includes maintenance costs, because I think economy is mainly driven by rates, like freight rates in general and contract rates. And so, like, the maintenance doesn't make the list, but I'd argue that maintenance is what's driven a lot of people out of business, at least from what I've seen on Twitter. And then on that side, that's there's always, we've been kind of had this argument of the driver shortage for several years, and kind of debunking this idea of there being a driver shortage. And then that same conversation's happening in the diesel mechanic world. And what's happening is there's almost a mix of both. There's a gentleman on Twitter, and I'll leave his name out of it. But he's a diesel mechanic, and he kind of went into a deep dive on this, where there is definitely likely a shortage, but also at the same time, there's a massive retention issue with diesel mechanics. And he described how to be a diesel mechanic in this industry, the only way to really make money anymore is what he describes as selling your soul to dealerships. And he says that's something he would never do for some reason, because of how that system operates, or just I guess how many of them have been doing business. But on the smaller scale, the pay isn't there. So guys are kind of like, kind of flaking out, changing path, maybe getting into a different niche. So, which is kind of the similar issue in trucking. You have turnover so high, you have people getting into the niches, whether it be oversized fuel hauling tanker, that the general freight of all kinds is having massive turnover, which is a safety issue. You're kind of seeing that on the diesel mechanic side, where anybody who is going to stick around ends up going towards where they're going to make the most money. Where they're making the most money ends up being the most expensive. And it's kind of bad for everybody down there. So I think maintenance, mean, because that's the thing. I think, that's like in every comment thread on TikTok. Like, I'm one breakdown. Like, guys make videos of that. I'm one breakdown away from bankruptcy. I'm one breakdown away from going into debt. And it's like, that's not necessarily, and it's not the owner operator's fault. It's not anybody's fault for a breakdown. You can't really blame anybody for it. But um, I think that there definitely needs to be some sort of good diagnostic on what's kind of gone on in that side of things. Because if rates have gone down, then clearly, you know, and I've kind of argued that myself, is if the cost of transporting things is going down, why do products become more expensive? And I'm sure that there's somebody, some mega mind on Twitter or somewhere, who can give me some sort of, you know, some reason why that's true. That is probably wrong in my in my eyes. Like, if things are getting cheaper, like if the cost of transporting something is cheaper, then there is no justification for the price going up, unless somebody's salary is being raised on the back end. And as far as we know, like we just talked about, it's not the mechanics who are getting the salary raise. It's not, middle management or whoever's getting that raise. So good point to leave it with. Last question I had for you. So if you were to talk to, you've been at this for a bit now. If you were to give one piece of advice to a brand new driver entering the industry, what do you give them?
That's a loaded question. Um, well, one, everyone that you will encounter in trucking is an expert in their own mind. What I mean by that is, be wary where you get your advice from. However, take advice from everyone that you can. Um, I, like especially in the social media realm, you hear people talk about, oh, well, back in the day, I did this, or I drove so many miles, or you don't need that, or the DOT this, and blah, blah, blah. You hear it all the time, and it can be very confusing. So, one, I would be very careful about getting any advice from social media. I would lean heavily on people that have been doing the job for quite a long time. And that may not necessarily be your trainer. Like, a lot of guys get into this industry, guys and gals get into this industry from a trucking school. They go into a trucking school, they get, fire hose training on a bunch of questions they got memorized for a test, a bunch of points on a pre-trip checklist, and their mind is just mush by the time they get through the test. And then they got to unlearn double clutching if they test it out manually, um, and learn how we actually do it out here, what everyone's preferences are, the different types of trucks, and how to operate them. Some are automatic, some are manuals. There's 10 speeds, 13 speeds, 18 speeds, and just as many gears in automatics, but depending on the type, and how to drive it down Monteagle Mountain on 24 in Tennessee. Or there's just so much information out there. But I would just be careful where you get your advice from, but pay attention and listen. We're born with 2 ears and one mouth, and it's really hard to just sit there and listen to and watch what everyone is doing, and you'll figure it out. Sometimes the best thing that you can do is just get out there and try. The gear shifting will get easier. The turns will get easier. I mean, I've made, that's my big Achilles heel right there, is trying to make clearance in a turn. And I've gotten a couple of trailers rubbed on some spots that I shouldn't have, because I didn't clear. But when it comes to overall trucking, just be mindful of who you talk to, where you get your advice from, but also understand, on the other hand, that this is a very important, noble profession in I know we got a lot of stuff going on with the issues of non-domicile drivers, the so-called driver shortage, just what we talked about a minute ago with the maintenance costs and the economy. But it is still a noble profession because trucking is the lifeblood of any country, anywhere, any given day. So you're the red blood cells feeding the oxygen to the rest of the body that is the country. And all you got to do is just get in there, learn your part. You're not going to be an expert overnight. You're not going to get paid well immediately, but over time, you'll start learning what works for you. Flatbed may not be for everybody. Dry van may not be for everybody. Driving dump trucks is definitely not for anybody because I've seen it myself. Guys would come off the road and be like, "Oh yeah, I'm going to be local, just driving a dump truck." Well, then next thing you know, you're on a tiny 2-lane road somewhere in the Smoky Mountains, and you can't see what's coming. You got to drop this rock off the side of a bank and hope the bed doesn't tilt too far and flip you over. And so there's just so much to learn from trucking that no one is going to be an expert, even if they stayed in this industry for 70, 80 years. And what's sad is there are still a lot of drivers, partially due to some of the issues that you mentioned with the economy or whatever, instead of enjoying their golden years at home with their family or on a beach somewhere, they're out here still trucking at 75, 80 years old. But just make sure this is what you want to do. And it's not going to be easy every day, but it's also not that bad. It can be a lot of fun. And just be mindful. And it's going to take you a couple of days to get across the country, and watch out for the four-wheelers, and especially in big cities. A lot of people nowadays must have skipped physics class. So just as long as you got a good head on your shoulders, you're checking your mirrors, and you just take your time, you'll be okay. And but don't be afraid to ask questions, even if the answer you get is a dumb answer. You can go ask the next guy and then just build on it brick by brick, as Butch Jones used to say. So you got to build a foundation somewhere. You got to start somewhere. I wanted to go over the road with a company out of Nashville doing drive-in work, and I ended up learning how to control a big vehicle on some of the steepest, tightest turns in the Smoky Mountains, and it paid off because I learned to respect the equipment and respect the traffic, and that's the best thing anybody can do. And if you are not 21 yet, I know there are some states that allow you to start driving commercially at a younger age. So get in with some of these farms or some of these. Look and see if your state has an intrastate only program where you can do local delivery work and start getting your feet wet before you get out here, on the big road. So you got to start somewhere. Just don't get discouraged and keep going.
No, that's perfect. Well said. Similar to kind of writing an English paper in high school or college or whatever. If you're writing a thesis or something like that, you need to find sources to kind of back it up. And I think the same thing goes with being a driver. That list of sources is almost infinite. You can, somebody may have a large following on a social media platform that doesn't necessarily verify their intelligence just because a bunch of people follow somebody doesn't automatically doesn't give them the automatic authority of being the go-to know-it-all type of guy. Everybody's got their own experience, and adding that list of sources of people you ask questions to, because like you said, I mean, somebody who's hauled dry van for 20 years, you can't go to them for advice on hauling fuel. They might know a lot about some stuff, but when it comes to fuel hauling, they might not know a whole lot. But that's well said. I want to, number one, Nate, thank you for your service. Number one, for your time spent in the Army. Thank you for coming on to the Clubhouse tonight. For you guys watching out there, if you couldn't tell, if you've been listening for less, over 55 minutes at this point, Nate, aka Rambler, is a gentleman who wants to leave this industry better than he found it. As you can see, he's currently laying the foundation for what he's building in his current line of work, and that's why we partner with gentlemen like him. So if you need truck parking tonight, again, that code is at the bottom of the screen. You can use Rambler20 for $20 off your next booking. And once again, Rambler's a gentleman who wants to leave this industry better than he found it. That is exactly what we do here at Truck Parking Club. Our mission is to help truckers save time, fuel, and thus money by instantly reserving truck parking all across the United States. So if you need it, we've got ample opportunities. Taillights is in your inbox. With that, guys, we'll be back next week, next Monday, 7:30 Central Time for the next edition of the Clubhouse. But with that, guys, happy Marine Corps birthday. Take care. Happy Veterans Day, and hammer down.